Okay, so since Caroline Levitt had a baby in May, they have been trying, well, a lot of different things in the briefing room. JD Vance has been in there. Marco Rubio was in there. He seemed to have a good old time, even if he was wearing shoes too big for him. We don't know if he was or wasn't, but he had a good time in there. And this week, they tried something new. And this time, they tried Dr. Oz. Yes, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is quite the conspiracy theorist. And he was in there. And I just have to play part of what he said because, well, there's a lot to say about it.
If the president's in such perfect health, why does he keep coming back in for checkups?
I think he likes the results. He does really well. He aces the test every single day.
I mean, first of all, good question. Second, he aces the test. The tests are rigged. They're state-run media tests. You can call them whatever you want to call them, but any test of health that says this current president of the United States has the body composition akin to Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, I don't know. I wouldn't buy that test. But Dr. Oz, he's not there to be a real doctor. He's just there to be a kiss-up quack, and he's quite good at it. Okay, speaking of things that are driving people a little bananas, there's obviously a lot going on for Trump right now, a lot going on in this country. He is the president of the United States still to this day currently. And there's a lot of things he could be working on. I mean, cost, a war with Iran that seems wildly out of control, so many things happening that he could address. Yet, what makes him absolutely lose his mind? Well, we have seen it recently, and that is the ruling that his name needed to be taken off the Kennedy Center, where it had been put up in gold letters above John F. Kennedy's name. And this made him absolutely lose his mind. So first, there's the judge who ruled, and then there's Trump's screed on Truth Social. And I just have to show you this screed because it is quite something. It's like an essay, but from somebody who's maybe not quite okay. So many words said there, you know, you can read it yourself. It's out there, but shockingly is how it starts. Many, many paragraphs. So he lost his mind. Completely bizarre, not surprising behavior from the president about having his name, his in letters taken off of a building in Washington, D.C. And why does it make him lose his mind? So many things to be said about that. But the person who said it the best, I think this week, is Jon Ossoff, senator from Georgia, who is running for re-election. So I'm going to play you what he said.
He's trying to put his face on the money. Did you see that? He's building a monument to himself. But see, Atlanta, he's doing these things now because no one will honor him when he's gone. Because he's a failed president and a national disgrace.
Now, saying someone is a failed president and national disgrace is quite a burn. But saying nobody will honor him when he's gone, I think is actually harsher. That is like a stab in the heart if you're Donald Trump and you care about being remembered and your legacy and your name everywhere and all over things, including the Kennedy Center, which now is going to be taken off of. We're still awaiting that, but that is supposed to be the next step. Okay, meanwhile, while Trump is losing his mind about having his name taken off of buildings, and Dr. Oz is briefing the press, and that's quite a choice that the White House is making. Out in the country, there have recently been a lot of big primary races, and primary races obviously are not the election. The people who win the primary races are not the person who necessarily we know is going to land in office, but it does introduce us to some of the characters and some of the races and how they're going to be set up and what the choice is going to be, which is super interesting. So there were big primary races this past week in California, and some of those election results are still coming in. Basically, in California, two people emerge, and they are the people who will face each other. It's not partisan. It could be two Republicans. It could be two Democrats. It sometimes is a Democrat and a Republican. Often, those are still being counted in a lot of places. That was big this week. Also, Iowa. Huge primary races in Iowa. Now, Iowa is a state that has broken the heart of Democrats for a number of years. Barack Obama did win Iowa twice, both in 2008 and 2012. He won the primary there, or the caucus as it was at the time, which kind of helped him really get to know the people of Iowa. But it has been a largely red state stronghold. I mean, it currently has 2 Republican senators. It has a Republican governor. All of the House congressional seats are represented by Republicans, and the 2 bodies of the state legislature are run by Republicans, are Republican led. So basically, there's not many Democrats who are in leadership positions. One of the people who is in a leadership position is a guy by the name of Rob Sand, who is the state auditor of the state of Iowa. He looks so young, but he has been the state auditor. He's been elected statewide a couple of times. And he's super interesting for a range of reasons. One, he never holds back. He talks like a normal person. But 2, he is kind of reclaiming waste, fraud, and abuse as an issue that actually Democrats care about. He's making not Doge, but a version of Joe's good. It's good Doge. I don't know what you call it. But I just want to play you part of one of his campaign ads because it's one of the things he's been running on. And I think it's pretty interesting because it's sort of, it reminds me of Democrats reclaiming patriotism and things like this. This is reclaiming, we're the party, I am the candidate who is going to actually fight waste, fraud, and abuse. So let's play it.
I'm Rob Sand. Being thrifty is a Sand family tradition that goes back and back and back. That's why, as state auditor, I created new efficiency programs to save your tax dollars and uncovered record amounts of misspent tax money. Then politicians changed the law, taking away my power to protect your tax money. It's wrong. As governor, I'll bring back accountability and make jail mandatory for stealing tax dollars. You should never be in the dark about your tax money.
I love the last part. It's so quaint. But that's Rob Sand. He has probably the best shot Democrats have had at winning the governor's race in Iowa in a very long time. And he could help lift up the rest of the ticket. And that could include, there's also going to be a very competitive Senate race I'm going to get to in a moment. And it could include House congressional races, which are not ones that necessarily Democrats are betting on in trying to get the handful they need to win back the House and win back Congress. But they will be in play. And that's a very interesting thing. Given, again, Trump won this state the last 3 presidential elections, and he won by more than a dozen points in the last presidential election. But guess what? Things like tariffs, things like cutting rural health care, things like rising and skyrocketing gas prices, the impact of all of those policies on farmers, on agricultural communities, on the cost of fertilizer. People don't like that in Iowa. And so they vote on things like that. So it gives a real shot. Now, I want to get into the Senate race because this is really interesting because this also happened this week. Now, on the Democratic side, there's a guy by the name of Josh Turek who is super compelling. He was born with spina bifida because his dad was in the military, was exposed to Agent Orange. He has been in a wheelchair, therefore, his whole life. He discovered basketball, wheelchair basketball, when he was a kid, and he actually played in the Olympics and the Paralympics in wheelchair basketball. Super interesting. He had a lot of support from veterans organizations and quite a bio. He basically talks about how it helped him understand people struggling with anything from economic challenges to the healthcare system. And, you know, it feels very real coming from him. So that's the Democrat. Now, on the Republican side, there was a guy who was supposed to win, or that was the speculation, by the name of Randy Feenstra, who had primaried Steve King. Remember Steve King? Steve King, he was a congressman for a long time in the western part of Iowa. Very conservative, seemed extremely wackadoo before so much of the party was wackadoo. He was wackadoo before majority wackadoo. And he was wackadoo because he was a guy who was pushing white supremacy, white nationalism. I mean, in some ways, he'd fit right into today's MAGA Congress. But Randy Feenstra primaried him, beat him in the primary, and is therefore a member of Congress. So he runs in this, and Donald Trump endorsed him. But he does not win. A guy by the name of Zach Lane wins. Zach Lane is interesting. He's considered the Maha candidate. He was endorsed by Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's group. So it's a little bit, that group won out a bit. There were a lot of factors here over the candidate Trump endorsed in this race. But Zach Lane is going to face Josh Turek, again, the guy I just mentioned and described, in the race for Senate. And that race is very much in play. It could be part of the path to winning back 4 seats for Democrats, and that is interesting given the history here. Okay. One of the other things that really struck a chord, I don't know, I paid attention to this week was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, well, let me start by saying this, and we've talked a bit about this, but Donald Trump obviously has this America 250 celebration. It's not just his celebration, but he is getting quite entangled in it, and he's using it as an excuse to do things that he really wants to do personally, like he's saying he's going to pardon 250 people. He is also having a UFC fight on the White House South Lawn to, as he says, commemorate America's anniversary, America's 250th celebration. But the fight is going to be on his birthday, which is June 14th, which again is not July 4th. Seems like he just wants a UFC fight on his birthday. So there's a lot of things to say about this. One of the things that struck me is that it is coincidentally happening the same time as Pride Month and Pride Week. I don't know what that will mean, but I just would love to see those two things interact. Also, there has been some wild reporting about the recruitment of the military to be in attendance, rank and file members of the military to be in attendance at this UFC fight, as long as they meet height and weight requirements, which is quite a thing to say about the military. And, it's fine to invite them. The military comes to events on the White House lawn all the time, but they'd have to pay their own way and they'd have to meet basically physical specifications to be able to be seen in the audience. But in terms of, there's a lot to be said about it, but in terms of the logistics of the event, and this is how I'm getting back to Joe Rogan. It is a hot freaking mess, the entire logistics of it. First of all, if you're in Washington, D.C., within any view of the White House, you can see the structure, which is heinous looking. There's that. But Joe Rogan is a UFC expert, so I want you to hear him describe the issues here.
The White House thing is odd. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of fighting outside at all.
Well, there's problems with it.
And then
Done it too many
it's
times.
June,
Yeah.
and it's D.C., and we looked it up the last time, like last year, same day, it was 100 degrees.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
Yeah.
hot as Yeah, the bugs are a big one.
Go back.
Gnats. Like, how are you going to stop the bugs? There's a lot of bugs.
You
You're
can
gonna
spray. That's
bugs.
pretty much all you can do.
pesticide the
That's
out of
good.
the fucking
Pesticide.
land.
That's good for the fighters.
I just don't think that you should compete in a world championship fight in a non-controlled environment.
Yeah.
I think it should be inside an air-conditioned arena. It should be a controlled environment.
Okay. Not exactly this is insane that they're doing this on the White House lawn, and it feels like a violation of so many things. But the logistics of it and his analysis of that are quite entertaining as well. So I had to play you some Joe Rogan. Okay. Before we go, I thought this was very compelling this week. Mayor Mamdani is, I have school-age kids, and it's the end of the school year. So you may also, if you do, be experiencing what is the challenge of the end of the school year and all the things that it requires of parents, and the fact that your kids are tired of being in school. They don't want to go to bed. They want it to be summer, all the things. Well, Mayor Mamdani did something kind of adorable this week. He signed an executive order repealing bedtime for the kids of New York City during the Knicks finals run. So let's just play what he said there.
Here is our mayor's order repealing kids' bedtimes for the Knicks finals run. Are we ready? Who here was alive in 1999?
They're like, what? 1999? So again, I'm not a New York City parent, but I think it's super cute that he did that. And I'm sure parents even thought it was cute in New York City too.